This is a repeat telecast of a program that was first aired on January 18th, 1984.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight On. I'm Scott Barnett. Spotlight On is the program that highlights local personalities in your cable area. Today with me, my guest is Mr. Joel Schiavone. Welcome, Joel, to Spotlight On.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to ask you, first off, you told me earlier that you grew up here in the New Haven area. Can you describe what it was like years back growing up in the New Haven area, and what it was like for you, some of the things you can remember and such as in old New Haven?
Well, I think the most interesting thing I can remember is that it took about 3.5 hours to drive from New Haven to Wallingford. I don't know if you remember back that far. You're probably too young, but they didn't build the I-91 until about 19 or 20 some years ago. And before I-91, you have to come up the Wallingford on the Hartford Turnpike. And so therefore, getting around the state was almost impossible. So I remember very well that there was really no relationship between New Haven, Wallingford, or Wallingford, Hartford, or Meriden or New Haven. There was a really very distinct entities. And when I came back to the state, I was away for a large number of years. I was really impressed with the fact that the velvet of I-91 had changed the whole relationship of the area, brought Wallingford much closer to New Haven and vice versa, and Hartford a lot closer to New Haven.
Now, do you enjoy the old quaint feeling that it would have of being smaller, disconnected, or do you think the new ties that have been made since the highway and making these towns closer together is made things different? Do you like that better?
I don't have a sense, because I left home when I was about 12 years old, and I went away to school for a large number of years, and I lived in New York and Boston, so I really didn't have a sense of the community. I think the important thing to keep in mind is I think we can maintain access to the past and still enjoy the new things such as highways. City of New Haven made that terrible mistake where they tore down a lot of their past, a lot of their heritage. Wallingford has a lot of their heritage left, and I hope they don't tear it down. If they don't, they can maintain the past and also enjoy the highways too as well.
Now, you mentioned you were off in school and such. Where did you get your school?
I went to Yale first for 4 years. Even though you're in New Haven, really from a psychological point, you're 1,000 miles away. And then after Yale, I went away to Harvard. I got my master's degree at Harvard. And then I stayed up there in that area in the Boston metropolitan area for about 5 years. And then I moved to New York, where I lived for 8 or 9 years. Came back here in 1972, and I've been here for the last last 12 years.
Right. Now, what was your first business interest after you came out of school? Wasn't it not in the restaurant area?
Yeah, I was in the nightclub business. I worked for my father, who was in the scrap business for about 5 months, and I'm sure whether he wanted me to leave or I wanted to leave. Probably I wanted to leave, and I left and went off on my own and opened a nightclub chain.
So that was the suppressed desire that was in Joel Schiavone at the time, right?
I'm not sure if it was a suppressed desire to start a nightclub or just to get away from my family, but whatever it was, one of the two, it kind of drove me out of the house, and off I went.
Now, around the state here, when I mentioned your name in doing the research for this program, people will respond with quite different opinions sometimes and ideas about you. Some, say developer, others say philanthropist, others say entrepreneur, and others will respond with not such a positive response. What would you say you hope your image, or what do you perceive yourself as, or would like people to perceive you as?
I think the thing that I've enjoyed most is being able to affect change both from an attitude point of view and change from a bricks and mortar point of view. Whenever you affect change, you obviously get a lot of people upset, because some people like change and some people don't, and those who don't are usually the ones who respond negatively, and those who do are the ones who respond positively. But I think that's really what I've enjoyed the most, and that's what I'd like to be remembered for, as the one who began to impact things, made some changes, got attitudes changed around, I think New Haven is a good example of that, of a town which probably had a pretty bad attitude about itself 5 years ago, 7 years ago. And now I think most people perceive it as a very nice place to live, and a growingly nice place to live.
Well, you've said that an attitude is one of the biggest parts about a town. Can you elaborate a little more on that, how a town can develop a better attitude about itself? For instance,
I think
Wallingford or Meriden?
Yeah. Well, I spent a lot of time in Meriden, and whenever I speak up there, I say precisely the same thing, so I might as well say it again. First of all, you have to have a viable downtown, because people think of themselves in terms of the way their downtown is perceived. If it's attractive, vibrant, going, 20 hours a day, 24 hours a day, people think of themselves. If this downtown is deteriorating and buildings are falling apart, that infiltrates their mind, and they begin to think of themselves as deteriorating and falling apart. So first of all, you've got to revitalize the downtown. And I don't say that because I'm in the downtown revitalization business. I say it because it's been said by everybody in the world and by perceptive people in Meriden and New Haven. So first thing we got to do is attack the downtown. Second thing we have to do, in conjunction with that, is to begin to attack this negative feeling about themselves. Meriden has a bad case of negative attitude. I think Wallingford does too, and I think New Haven did, and it's beginning to go away as things begin to happen downtown, and as the Schubert Theater gets built and other things. So I think, I'm not sure what comes first, but my guess is that attitude comes first.
Well, how much of a role do you feel the media has to play in that, either the breaking down of an attitude or the building up of one?
Well, I've spent a lot of time railing about the media, because I think that generally they thrive on the negative things and very rarely on the positive things. And I think to a large extent they are the only ones who tell people what's going on, so to a large extent they are responsible for the way we feel about ourselves. Now, there's nothing that the media could have done about the deterioration of downtown Meriden or the deterioration of downtown Wallingford. But they could have done something about a more positive self-image of the town, and the media really has to work it. I think 4 years ago or 5 years ago, or you may recall that media in New Haven got together and formed that group to advertise the advertising program about New Haven, which is called Look What We've Got in New Haven. A little thing, but they spent lots of money, $800,000 to $1 million of airtime on that. And it's been very helpful in changing attitudes, and ELI and the Channel 8 and the Register and all these major groups got together. And it's very helpful. They began to think that they had a role in that whole thing. So I think if your supposition was that they play an important role, I would agree with that.
But did it take you a long time to, for instance, to get them on your positive side of these issues?
Yeah, I think, but not me. The media are a reflection of their readership, and their readership and their listenership were negative and upset and angry for a large number of years, and they reflected that. My role was to tell the media that they should not follow their audience, but they should lead their audience, and the audience wanted to be led from a positive point of view, and they had a responsibility to do that, and I think they are doing a fine job now.
Now, what originally, as a businessman, what got you interested in the New Haven project and now the Meriden project?
I lived all over the world. I lived in New York, in Denver, New Orleans, San Francisco. I saw the impact of downtowns on the mentality of people. And I also saw how relatively easy it was to take old buildings, restore them, renovate them, put in restaurants, shops, and how people really flocked to see these things. And I came back to New Haven, and I wrote my first letter to the mayor in 1972, the year I got back, indicating that I'd just come back, and why couldn't we do this in New Haven? And here we are in 1984, and we're finally getting started. But there's no reason why New Haven or Meriden can't adopt the same sort of philosophy that San Francisco has, for example. It's just a question of willpower and attitudes, and people are just as interested in attractive old buildings here as they are in San Francisco. So there's no reason why we can't have that. And I was upset that New Haven didn't seem to be concerned about its downtown, or didn't think that there was any way to solve the problem except by tearing the whole thing down.
Great. Okay, we'll talk more about downtown revitalization with Joel Schiavone right after these messages. Welcome back to Spotlight On. I'm talking with Joel Schiavone. Now, concerning your redevelopment projects in New Haven and Meriden, a former, or the former Medco president in Meriden made a statement concerning the negotiations upcoming on the project, that if they were open to the public, then all you'd have to do is pick up the paper and see what you'd have to say to make deals with them down the line. Doesn't that sort of show a conflict in something that you should actually be working more as a team for? I mean, the interests of the city and your interests in this particular project should be parallel instead of looking like they're converging.
Well, I agree with the statement. I think the item you're referring to has more to do with the conflict over the Freedom of Information Act, and does that apply to negotiations? There was a suggestion by several people in Meriden that negotiations between us should be thrown open to the public. Well, that's an absurd notion. I've never heard of anything like that. There's no way you can conduct negotiations under the glare of the lights. There's no way it's appropriate to broadcast what your negotiating position is in advance in the media. That's something that's done privately, hopefully with good perspectives, and everybody's concerned about accomplishing something, but it's done behind the scenes, and when you're done, you come forward with the results. That's the first issue. The second issue is, sure, we're both on the same track, because I don't make any money unless this thing works and is successful, and the city of Meriden doesn't make any money unless it works and is successful. We really are working together on this project as a joint venture. They're going to put in some money, and we're putting in some money. They're going to risk something, and we're risking something, and neither of us do very well unless the whole thing works. So it's clear, and I think the point that you're leading to is accurate, that it's not a negotiation where they're trying to get the best of us and we're trying to get the best of them. It's a negotiation where we're trying to come up with something that makes sense for everybody, for the town of Meriden, for the people who own property in the district, for ourselves, for the people who want to rent and live there, and so that everybody is happy.
Now, one of the main issues is relocation of present tenants, both in New Haven and also in the Meriden project, commercial and residential. How originally there were accusations that you wanted to bring in a professional class, or a higher class group into the area of Meriden to stimulate the economy and such there. What about the lower class people that are already living there, say behind the mall area and such? What are the plans to make housing available to them, or to keep the relocation problems to a minimum?
The problem is a universal problem, insofar as everybody wants to revitalize downtown, which means basically improve the value of its real estate. And at the same time, over a period of years, some of the downtown areas have become the lowest income-producing properties in the whole area. Now, that makes no economic sense, to have the most viable part of your whole metropolitan area out in the outskirts and have downtown completely deteriorated. In most major cities, it works the other way around. The most expensive real estate is downtown, and it declines as you get away. Meriden and New Haven were exactly the opposite, where the least expensive real estate was right in the heart of downtown. If you want to make some changes, unfortunately, you've got to restore those buildings and begin to improve the real estate values, which means that you've got to upgrade the rents. And so we're not suggesting poor, middle class, or anything. We're suggesting what we call market rate housing rather than subsidized housing. Market rate housing necessarily means that anybody can come in, but my guess is that the majority of the people there cannot afford it. But let's not make a mountain out of this. Not that I'm minimizing the problems in Meriden, but there are only about 90 to 100 people involved. It's a relatively insignificant number of people. Not an insignificant problem, but an insignificant number of people. Vis-a-vis the impact and the size of the project. It's 900,000 to 1 million square feet. In New Haven, we've already located more than 150, 200 people, and we've only done about 150 to 200,000 square feet. So by comparison, the problem in Meriden is relatively modest. Nonetheless, it has to be solved. The city has agreed that they would take care of it. We're in the real estate business, not in the relocation or the solving social problems business. But we are sensitive to that, and we both agreed that the project in both areas cannot proceed until that particular situation is resolved to the whole satisfaction of everybody, meaning the people there and the city of Meriden and ourselves.
Now, when redeveloping a business district, what are some of the essential elements involved that you think of? Say you take, say, another town in this area. When you come in, what are the elements that you need to have or need to get rid of to make it a successful project?
The essence of what we're trying to do is recreate a neighborhood. Now that may sound too simplistic, but that's really very hard to do. A neighborhood is an area which works 24 hours a day, where people live, where they work, where they play, where they eat, where the shopkeepers know the members of the neighborhood. To give you a simple example, you're going away for the weekend, you leave your key with the shoemaker across the street, and a friend comes in and gets it and stays in your apartment. That's a neighborhood. We've got to recreate that neighborhood feeling. We're not building a shopping mall, we're not building an apartment complex, we're not building an office complex, we're creating a neighborhood. All of those elements have to be present, which means that basically we have to go in, work with the people who are there. We cannot find people from New York or Boston who move into the area with beautiful new shops, because that destroys the neighborhood feeling. We've got to work with local people. We've got to improve their attitudes, improve their stores. We've got to find other local people who have always wanted to open stores to come downtown. We've got to locate local people in the apartments. We've got to get lawyers and other people to move into their offices. Basically, we've got to work as best we can with the local people to try to create that local neighborhood feeling.
Well, as the developer, how much of a say should you have on certain things retailers carry and such? There's been some things in the press about this.
Sure.
And the makeup of their stores and such. How much play should you have on that?
Well, our position is that for the benefit of everybody, we should have a 100% authority. This is no different than a shopping mall from a conceptual point of view. In other words, the success of the retailer is dependent upon the unified effort of all the retailers. If you have one guy who has a terrible store, decorates it badly, advertises it badly, never clean, place is a mess, right in the middle of 14 stores who are trying to do a good job. He doesn't stay open required hours. He closes at 4 o'clock every afternoon, goes home, and leaves a big dark spot in the middle. That has a significant impact on those other 13 retailers. And whereas he might be maintaining his autonomy, he's hurting the other 13 people who are trying to do a good job. So unfortunately, you have to give something to get something back. And the giving up, you give up some of your autonomy. What you get back is a unified marketing, advertising, promotional effort, which is guaranteed to increase the sales volume that you have. It's not a new concept. If you go into a mall or go into any place, you've got to live by the rules, and that's really all we're saying. It's not as if we're imposing rules which no one else has ever had. We're using a fairly standard shopping center lease, and we're not doing anything unusual that isn't being done at West Farms Mall or the Meriden Mall or the North Haven Mall, if it ever gets built, or any of the other 400,000 shopping malls in the United States.
Okay, interesting. We'll talk more about Joel Schiavone's business interests and his entertainment interests right after this message. Welcome back to Spotlight On. My guest today is Joel Schiavone, and as you can see by the banjo, we've got a little something different planned today. But first I'll ask you a couple questions that are in this realm. Your interest in the arts has been obvious for many years now. Now, in your projects, do you feel that the arts are an essential part of a town or city's development?
I think what's going on in the United States is a clear trend away from the I or the me generation back to the we generation. And the we generation necessarily means group activities that bring large groups and small groups of people to spend time with each other on a regular basis. And arts really fits that bill very nicely. And we really feel that the proliferation of the arts, which is taking place and will continue to take place, should be an important part of what we're doing. So both in Meriden and New Haven, we work very hard on making sure that the arts groups are located in our projects, that they make major contributions, that we have theaters, that we have art exhibits, we have everything going on day and night that we can, because we think it really helps us, it helps the retailers, it helps the people who live there, it helps the office tenants, it helps the whole quality of life.
I'm sure the artists appreciate your efforts in that
Maybe.
area.
I don't know. We'll find out in 5 years.
Well, I understand you got a selection or two you can do for us now to entertain everybody.
One of the interesting things about the banjo is that this is a 4-string banjo, not a 5-string, and it was the kind of banjo that was played in the ragtime jazz area. All the bands in the United States had a banjo player up until the Roaring Twenties were over. When the 1930s came in, they began to get rid of the banjo players, and they put in the swing bands. So unfortunately, most of the songs I play were written before 1930. So, which is great for people my age, but for people your age, you're going to look at me very blankly and figure that this is a page out of the past or out of the library. But with that particular proviso in mind, I'm going to proceed, and I don't care about you young kids anyway. I'm going to play something for the old people in the audience, meaning people my age. All right? This is about 1923, 22. Who's the greatest lover this country ever knew? Who's the man that Rudolph Valentino takes his hat off to? And it isn't Douglas Fairbanks the ladies rave about. When he arrives, he chases all the husbands out. Ho, 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 Barney Google with googly eyes. Barney Google had a wife 3 times his size. She sued Barney for divorce. Now he's living with his horse. Barney Google with his googly eyes. That was the kind of song that your parents and my parents, and to a lesser extent me, enjoyed back in the 20s and even in the 1940s. So I have a theory that the 1920s and 1950s were the 2 times in our whole nation's history where we had songs that were fun. Everybody's so serious now, talking about love and war and nuclear threats and everything else, and that's going on for 20 years. But in the 1950s, which you may remember, and in the 1920s, there were a large number of songs with a very good sense of humor. A 1950s Teen Angel in Love and all that kind of stuff, which was very humorous and very enjoyable. 1920s was the same kind of era, an era of great growth in the United States, an era of great excitement, a great era of unlimited possibility, same as the 50s, and the music reflected that. So let me give you one more song from the 1920s, which has somewhat of a sense of humor. Oh, what a time I had with Minnie the Mermaid down at the bottom of the sea. There amongst the corals I forgot my morals. Gee, but she was awfully good to me. And every night when the starfish came out, I hug and kiss her, oh, oh, what a time I had with Minnie the Mermaid, down in her seaweed bungalow, down in her seaweed bungalow.
Very good, very good. So, do you get much chance to do these things out much now?
A lot of people feel that I get more chances than I should. I play one night a week with the Galvanized Jazz Band, which has been playing over at the Mill Pond Tavern in Northford for 13 years. We're about to have our 13th anniversary March 3rd and 4th. And I'm not saying this because I need the plug because we're all sold out. I'm just saying it to indicate that this is a band which is probably the longest running band on the East Coast at the moment. And we've been around a long time.
Now, how many members are in the band?
7-piece band, and we play Dixieland jazz and old-fashioned kinds of music.
So you're sold out for that evening already, huh?
Yeah, right. Sold out for those 2 days. But it's something that I really enjoy. I guess everybody has to have something which they can leave the problems of the office behind and go away and absorb yourself in something for 4 or 5 hours every week. And that's what I do, and I really enjoy it.
Well, it seems like you do have a lot of fun doing it. Maybe if you got a real quick one for us, you can
A real quick one?
finish up with.
By the sea, by the sea, by the beautiful sea, you and me, oh, how happy we'll be. Oh, when those waves come a-rolling in, we will duck and swim, and we'll float and fool around the water, over and under and then up for air. Pie is rich, baby, what do we care? I want to be beside your side, beside the seaside. One more little sky. I want to be beside your side, beside the seaside, the beautiful sea.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much for being with
You're
us
welcome.
on Spotlight On. I'm sure it'll be one of our most talked about shows.
Well, I wouldn't have come if you hadn't told me I had a chance to play the banjo, Scott. But as soon as you told me I had a chance to play the banjo, I came
Dropped everything
as fast as I could.
Okay, great. Well, glad to have you. I hope we can have you back
Thanks.
sometime again. Thank you very much for watching Spotlight On. My guest has been Joel Schiavone, and I'm Scott Barnett. Thank you.